Do you like your tabletop RPGs to be grim, gritty, and grounded? If so, then Legend of the Bones is the podcast for you. A hybrid of dark fantasy audio drama and old-school solo D&D. In Legend of the Bones, the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.
This Snazzy Tapir production is made possible by our patrons. If you'd like to join them, head over to patreon.com/snazzytapir to get early access to new episodes, access to the members-only Discord, and our exclusive monthly newsletter. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to A Game of One's Own, a podcast all about solo and duet role-playing games. I'm your host, Maddy Searle. My pronouns are they, them. And today I'm playing Universe at Your Door, The Traveller, a solo game by Lola Johnson. In this game, I'll be playing a space traveller on a mission to investigate extrasolar planets. I need to gather and share knowledge and make sure I do no harm to the environments I discover. This game is inspired by the novella To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, which I absolutely love and would highly recommend to anyone with an interest in science fiction. At the time of release, Universe at Your Door is crowdfunding on Kickstarter, so if you enjoy today's episode, please go and check out the campaign and consider backing the game yourself. To play, I need a standard deck of playing cards and a set of polyhedral dice. I will be answering prompts as determined by the cards and the dice, and when I draw the joker, the game will end. But before we begin, this episode includes some sensitive topics and themes. If you need more information, there are content warnings in the show notes, as there are for every episode of the show. Now, without further ado, let's play Universe at Your Door, The Traveller.
Traveller, enter designation.
My name is Hestia Bowler. I use she/they pronouns. I'm the astrobiologist for this mission. I was desperate to be assigned here. For as long as I can remember, I've tried to imagine what life on other worlds might be like. This is my only opportunity to see alien life for myself, and I have to take it, or I'll always be wondering what could have been. But no matter how far we travel, or what strange new sights we see, I will keep the amethyst ring my grandmother gave me on a chain around my neck, tucked into my suit. That's my connection to home.
Enter craft.
Our ship, our new home, is called the Hearth. It has specialised scanners to search for biosignatures on alien worlds, and a whole suite of advanced recyclers for every waste product you can imagine, or may not wish to imagine. My little corner is the biology lab, which I filled with plants, photos, posters, as much clutter as I could get away with, to make it feel like home. There are 12 of us on board the Hearth, each with our own specialism, but most of us have additional secondary training. Although I'm primarily an astrobiologist, I have some engineering experience, so I can assist the head engineer in an emergency. A classic case of plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Log entry 00003.
Landfall day on WASP 39, our first new planet. We took the pod down to fly over the surface and saw a vast expanse of dry, rocky wasteland, but then we spotted a crevasse with tendrils of vegetation spilling out onto the desert. As we flew into the crevasse, we discovered a whole ecosystem thriving down there in this sprawling cave system. Creeping vines that react to the searchlights on our pod, pale bioluminescent succulents with hooked spines. It was incredible. We did our utmost not to disturb the ecosystem, and made sure to decontaminate ourselves before setting foot in the caves. But of course, I took a sample. It was one of the glowing succulents. We discovered that its hooked spines catch drifting insect-like creatures, and with a rippling motion, they pass the body of the creature down to the soil to act as fertilizer. I could study just this one organism for months, but there are so many others to learn about.
Log entry 00147.
We're coming to the end of our 12-year stay on WASP 39. Soon we'll be back in torpor, suspended in time for 17 years, on our way to our next world. Then we'll wake up with a whole new planet to discover. Despite the many, many challenges of living on WASP-39, I have some very fond memories of this place. I was one of the last to get used to the stronger gravity, despite us all having access to soma forming. These synthetic enzymes allow our bodies to temporarily adapt to a variety of environments. In this case, our muscles, our hearts, and our lungs had to be strengthened to cope with high G. I was so exhausted at first, but once I got used to it, I really enjoyed how sturdy I felt. Dr. Jasper monitored the soma forming process very closely and was so kind and encouraging. We ended up becoming quite close. After a long work day, we'd grab a drink and sit by a small waterfall, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in companionable silence. I hope we find a nice new spot on our next world.
Log entry 00154.
This is our 6th month on the planet HD 97564. The ecosystem is dominated by fungi, towering hundreds of feet above us and clustered on the ground barely an inch high. So many shapes and sizes and so many unique adaptations. My favourite one, the one I call umbrella fungus, can exude droplets of a substance which kills off the spores of competing fungi, which looks like rain on an umbrella. This has set me off on a quest to discover what other defences fungi have developed in this biological arms race.
Log entry 00155.
While I focus on HD 97564's fungi, our planetary scientist Dr. Lee has made a fascinating discovery. This planet used to have a moon millions of years ago, but a large asteroid impact destroyed it, and the debris now forms a ring around the planet. Since we have set up camp near the equator, we see this ring as a straight line of light across the sky. Although we've been here for months, whenever I see that seemingly endless band of light, I have to stop myself from just standing there in awe. At night, it never gets truly dark. The light reflected from the ring gives everything a twilight glow. I might take up paintings just so I can stare into the sky for hours at a time. With proper eye protection, of course.
Log entry 00159.
It's nearly been a year on HD 97564. Dr. Jasper, Frank, I should say, found us a great new spot for our post-work drinks a few months ago. There's a cave a short drive from the labs, which has the most spectacular ruby deposits I've ever seen. We set up our folding chairs at the mouth of the cave, set a lantern inside, and just watch it sparkle. One evening, Frank brought some tools and cut out a small ruby for me. Despite its rough, unpolished edges, it's more beautiful to me than any ruby I've ever seen. I've wrapped some wire around it and hung it on my necklace, right next to my grandmother's amethyst ring.
Log entry 00162.
I'm thinking about my grandmother a lot these days. She was in her 80s when I left Earth. She probably passed away a long time ago, perhaps while I was in torpor. But she put on a brave face for me, told me how excited she was for me, how glad she was that I was following my dream. But the deep sadness in her eyes, knowing she would never see me again, just keeps coming back to me, often at the strangest times. When I was a kid, every day after school, I would go to my grandmother's house. We'd eat snacks, watch TV, talk about books, do crafts. She had this illustrated animal atlas, filled with amazing creatures from all over the world. I wish I could show her everything I've learned, all the sights I've seen. But all I can do is remember.
Log entry 00209.
It's our last day on HD 97564. It's been just over 5 years on this planet, and now it's time to move on again. I'll miss my little routines, my daily rituals. For the past few years, I've had my breakfast at the same time every 2 short day, gone for a walk through the fungal forest every 2 warm afternoon, and had a drink with Frank every 2 bright evening. Through all the staggering newness and fascinating difference, these pockets of sameness help keep me grounded. I won't miss the constant spores, though. No matter how careful we are with the airlocks, the local fungi constantly encroach in our personal space and require daily scrubbing of almost all surfaces. Dr. Lee has got it down to a fine art and saved my ass more than once when I wasn't as thorough as I should have been. Tomorrow we'll start our 18-year-long torpor. I wonder how much has changed back home while we've been gone, and how much more will change while we're asleep.
Log entry 00211.
It's only been a few weeks on Hat P27, but already so much has happened. We've encountered the most complex alien fauna yet. The most dominant species appears to be somewhat mammal-like. They are about the size of a raccoon with downy, feathery fur and claws for climbing trees. But they also have a pair of small, bony beaks, one on the left side of their heads, one on the right. At the moment, the purpose of this adaptation is a mystery to me, but as I study the ecosystem further, I may be able to determine why and how the dual beaks evolved. They eat a combination of vegetation and small animals, and almost never come down from the trees, at least when I'm present. I should set up some cameras to see if their behaviour changes when I'm absent.
Log entry 00212.
Last week, a forest fire swept through the region. Our ship was pretty heavily damaged, and poor Dr. Hill sustained a really nasty burn to her right hand. But we pulled together and managed to evacuate the area without further injury. A lot of my two-beaked friends didn't make it. I know that forest fires, at least on Earth, can have beneficial outcomes for the ecosystem, especially for plant species dependent on fire for seed dispersal, but I'm still sad for all the lives that were lost. But I need to remember that life goes on. The two-beaked species still survives elsewhere, and new plants and trees will grow in the wake of the fire.
Log entry 00213.
Our new camp is on the coast, about 100 kilometres from the forest. The rocky landscape, scattered with strange grasses and hardy shrubs, somehow reminds me of Orkney. I went on holiday there with my family when I was young, to see Skara Brae and the Ring of Brodgar. I was so excited to see these ancient landmarks, but didn't expect how much I'd love the landscape itself. The treeless expanse, cut off by jagged cliffs, somehow felt alien to me as a lowland Scottish child. I loved the seabirds nestled into the cliffs, flying over the waves, perfectly suited to their environment. It seems almost ridiculous that this place, light years away from Earth, would bear any resemblance to Orkney, and yet the memories just keep flooding back.
Log entry 00214.
We've just had word from Dr. Hill. The damage our ship sustained in the forest fire cannot be fully repaired. This world just doesn't have the resources we need to replace the destroyed parts. We talked late into the night, discussing every possible scenario, and we've come to a decision. We'll be spending the rest of our lives on Hat P27. We all knew it would be a possibility that we'd never see Earth again, but the reality is always different from what we imagine. I took a walk along the coastline, found a quiet place under the cliffs, and cried for what felt like hours. When I got back to camp, I saw Frank. He gave me the biggest hug, and I knew we'd be all right. Yes, this is the end of our mission to travel the stars in search of life, but it's also the beginning of a new one. And I think this world has more surprises for us. That's the end of my playthrough of Universe at Your Door, The Traveller. I loved the chance to get to explore some of the themes in Becky Chambers' work through Lola Johnson's beautiful game. If you want to back the game on Kickstarter and try it for yourself, or learn more about Lola's incredible work, there are links in the podcast description. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Game of One's Own. Our theme music, as always, is by James Barbarossa, and this week's episode also included music by Kevin MacLeod. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/NazzyTapier for all the bonus goodies. You can follow the show on social media at A Game of One's Own and find out more about my work at snazzytapier.com or at Maddy is Abstract on social media. See you next time for more weird stories.